Okay, everyone, so we are continuing our journey into working with our Web3 NFT mint portal. We have done a lot of progress in the video series. We got to the point of making our first API call to retrieve information from Etherscan so we can update our website with token supply information, reflecting the amount of tokens that are minted on the smart contract so we can tell our users the amount of tokens left on the smart contract. Now let's work on automating the way that we extract or get the information to our site to display our NFTs. The last video I touched and we covered how do you build an array, a constant array of values, and use those values so you can populate the information on the site. While that's a great approach, it's a static approach, which means that unless you as a developer constantly update your website or your ReactJS web application, it's not going to change. So that, while it's the start of understanding how we can grab a constant and build an array of values that we can use that to be displayed. We can call picture files, we can call string objects, we can call a lot of things. Well, that works. It's static, which means that will not change or it will not update. So let's say a new token or a new buyer gets a new NFT minted from our portal. Unless you go into that array and you manually add that token ID along with all the information, you're not going to see that display on the site. And that's not an efficient way of doing it, right? So what we want to do now is we want to make sure that through an API call, we can gather that information from Etherscan and display that on the site, okay? So we don't need to be configuring manual items like we did on the previous video. The whole goal of that previous video is for you to understand how can you call specific attributes that are nested inside an array, right? Or values inside of an array, so you can make the configuration way shorter. So your HTML code will be a little bit more clean. However, that is not a scalable approach. That is more of a static approach in which you are going to configure things on the site that will be displayed and it will not change or it will not update. Then that will definitely work. It's a static approach. But we are talking about smart contract interaction, which always will change. We'll always have updates. Let's say a buyer decides to sell the NFT to someone else. The NFT owner will change. And we want to display that on our site. We want to give the end users the full visibility into the NFT collection. So what I'm thinking on this video, what we should do is configure two API calls. Okay, we're going to replace that data constant that we built on the previous video with static entries for each NFTs. We're just going to retrieve absolutely every single information out of Etherscan through an API call, and we will display that on our mint site. That will include the pictures. That will include even the owner, the wallet of the owner. So let's say you bought an NFT. You will see your NFT along with the owner wallet address reflected on our site. If I, let's say, buy a new NFT, I want that to be auto-refreshed and updated, showing the new NFT that was recently minted along with my wallet ID. That's what we're going to be doing in this video. So stick around and let's make it happen. So let's refresh real quick what we did on the last video. On the last video, basically we ended up creating a static data constant. What we included the ID, for each token. We included the image path, which this is the image path in IPFS where all of our picture files for all the NFTs are stored. The title and the ID. What we want to do now? What we want to do now is automate this entire configuration. So we don't need to manually create every single NFT that is minted. We don't need to create this information or add this information onto the constant because we will always be updating this. We want this to be in real time updated. The moment someone buys an NFT, we see the NFT reflected on the site. How do we do that? We definitely do it with an API call. That's the way we're going to do it because it's a simpler approach. The other way that we can do it is calling straight into the smart contract, finding the API path for my metadata file, and then filtering and finding the specific values. That is also another approach. However, that takes a little bit more time to code. It's more code intensive. And why not just use an API call for that, which another source or another API destination already has the information we need. Okay, so with that said, I am going to be replacing all this with 2 API calls. The existing API call that, I'm gonna go back, the existing API call that retrieves the token supply. Let's go to the site. Okay, so you remember on the last video, we coded an API call that was pulling from Etherscan the value, or in this case, the amount of NFTs minted so far from our smart contract. Okay, we manually configure this with the data constant. Now what we want to do is we want to create the same layout, right? But in this case, I should not need to manually configure every single item. It should be auto pulled from Etherscan and it should be auto generated, and you should see this displayed on the screen. Also, we want to, give a little bit more information. Also, we want to list the owner wallet. So we want to display the owner of the NFT. So we want to display that owner wallet right below here. We're going to also export that information. Here's the challenge. The challenge is that this particular API module will not include the NFT information that we're looking for. It only gives me the token supplied on the ERC 721 smart contract. We need to then create another API call that could get the information that we want. How do we find that API call message or that API call path that we need to call in order for us to get that information? I also explained that. That is through Etherscan. So let's go to Etherscan real quick. Let's go to the API documentation and let's take a look and see what API endpoint or API endpoint path do I need to use to get the information that we want. So if we go back to the API documentation, we want to go to accounts and let's go to the ERC. I see it already here. So let's get a list of ERC 721 token transfer events by address. Okay. With this call, I should get the information that I want. What am I looking? Token ID, because we want to get the token ID. Number 2, we want to get the owner of that NFT, right? So we also are going to extract the address of the wallet that is holding that NFT. And finally, we are going to auto-generate the IPFS path to the picture of the NFT. How can we do that? We know that the IPFS path ends in the token ID .png, which is the PNG file, the file format for that picture. If we are extracting the token ID it's the NFT number, right? And we already minted 3, so we got token 1, token 2, token 3. With that, I can actually use the token ID to generate the IPFS path, right? Because the only thing that I need to make sure that I set as a variable is token ID.png, because I want that to change to 1. In this case, if it's NFT1, it will be updated with NFT1.png, and that's how IPFS should retrieve the image, and it should show it on our website. Let's go ahead and do that. If you want to run this without without doing it in React so you can see it through the browser, we can do it as well. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and do it real quick. Okay, so I just generated the entire URL path, so we can do the API call straight from the browser. And this is the information that we are getting back in return once we do the proper call. So I literally just generated this entire URL and, formatted it correctly on the browser, made sure that I'm pointing to my contract, right? My NFT contract. And because we're using the Wrinkle by testnet for the smart contracts, I got to make sure that that's the endpoint address, smart contract ID. At the end, we got our API key. Awesome. Perfect. What information are we getting back? We're getting a lot of good values. I can actually call the token name in my ReactJS site, and I can display this on the browser because it's calling that value from the API call, and I can store that and display that in HTML. I can grab this information, and this is what I'm going to be focusing on. I mean, I'm focusing on the token ID because I want to grab this value. I also want to grab the 2. 2 is the receiver of the NFT, basically the buyer. So the moment the buyer executed the mint function from the smart contract, it got the NFT. So that's literally the transfer of that NFT. So this is the particular API call. Okay. And we got way more information than you can think of here. So you can see that this is the call. We are now going to generate this using AXIOS. So now we need to create 2 API calls. That's the challenge. It's not hard. Obviously, you know, I had to learn a lot about how do I create multi API calls with a single async component, so I can create the 2 calls, right? So we're gonna make a lot of changes here. The first thing we gotta do, obviously, we have to delete this, right? Because we're no longer using static values, right? The next thing I have to do, I have to give, and let me undo this real quick so I can show you. I have to now generate this entire URL path so I can append the token ID.png. So it then generates, you know, .1, .2, .3, .4. So I have to create a constant that stores this particular URL value. So then it just updates the end and retrieves the picture. Okay. So with that said, let me go ahead back and delete this. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So with that said, the first thing I have to do, I have to create another constant, and what we can call this, let's call this NFT PNG equals, and then what we need to paste, it's the IPFS path, but we're not going to paste the end, you know, the token ID .png, because that will be generated as as React renders generate that full function, and that's how this will complete. Okay, so that looks good. And the next thing we have to do, we have to make some changes here. The first thing we gotta do, we have to build 2 await functions. Await means that, you know, await until you retrieve that information. We already got one await. If you can see it right here, we can even use this one. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and remove this. So in this case, you're gonna see that I am going to do it in a different way. I have to do the first API call, which in this case is the balance call, right? And then once I get that balance call, then I'll do, I set this promise state. Okay. Also, by the way, I need to remove this, but as a matter of fact, because we now need 2 API calls, I have to change this to another value, to something else, because I'm still going to use this. You know, this is for API call number 1, this is for API call number 2. So let's make it something relevant. In this case, I can say NFT data. So I am going to, on the second call, I am going to retrieve that NFT data that I need. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Now, I need to script this particular path right here. So what we want to do, I have to tell AXIOS, hey, get this information and then do this. How do you do it? AXIOS, do the API call, right? Then I'm going to press dot, type then. So we are going to do a promise response, which basically is like, you know, once you get that, please execute this, right? Basically it. I am going to go ahead and copy and paste because it's going to take longer in the video if I just decided to type, right? I'm going to copy this whole thing for the first call so you can understand what we're doing, okay? So I do then, and I want to say, you know, the output A, right? This is the first call. Output A, that's the name that I label it. Whatever information you get from this call, store this in output A. Then you want to set the state of, oh, this is a typo. This will be balance because that's our first state, right? So balance equals, or it's referenced to output a dot data. Dot data is the AXIOS response. That's how we are going to grab the information from the API call and store that, okay? Finally, we need to say, well, if there's any errors, or if I see that the call was successful, I should get a console output with the API call data, okay? This is how we do that first one, right? So balance, it's attached to output A dot data. Dot data means sort all the API call data into this particular output, right? Which in this case is balanced. Now we need to do the same thing for our second API call for NFT data, okay? So what I'm going to do in this case, I am going to await again. I'm going to do exactly the same procedure, but for call number 2, right? So in this case, I finish this particular call. I'm just going to add my second call here, and I'll show you how, what's that about. So with that said, I no longer need this because this was from the previous call, which now we basically nested 2 API calls. So now this looks way more clean, right? Now what I need to do, axios.get, again, I am doing another API call, but this time, guess what? I am calling that API URL that we showed, that we saw on the browser. I am actually calling it now. I am labeling it output B because I already have output A for the first one, output B. But in this case, because there's multiple values inside this API call, I need to create an array and store result as the constant of whatever you get in output B.data. There's a lot of values inside that output B data. One value is token ID, another value is 2, another value is contract address. All the information that you saw on the API call, those are values. In this particular scenario, there's only one value, which is the token supply. But in this one, there's way more values that I can call. So how do I store all that value inside an array? I create a constant after it gets processed by Axios. Constant is result. So I'm basically calling it result of whatever the output you get. And I am expecting an array of values from this particular variable, okay? This is literally whatever the output is, what was processed, data. This is where Axios does the magic of sorting it out and making sure that we can call those particular values, right? And finally, we end up doing the same thing, but in this case, we're not going to call output.data here, right? Because this is a single value. In this case, this is just the supply of the tokens. In this case, I am calling the array, which I basically told this value, hey, treat this information as an array of values. And that's how I literally store that here as the result. So that's the only difference, okay? Once you do that, then obviously you want to make sure that the call runs successfully, and then you can check the logs on the browser if you like to see that is running as expected, right? That's it. We're no longer talking to the data constant. We no longer need that. This will be completely generated from the API call, okay? Now comes the fun part. Now we need to call the new output from the second API call, also pointed to be at this state. So whatever information we get from this set state, we just need to render it and call it this state, okay? So we just type constant and we say this case will be NFT data. That's the second value in our constructor right here, right? So we got balance, we got NFT data, and now we need to just call it the same state, okay? We'll do it that way. Now we got 2. Awesome, but you see it's grayed out because we haven't called this on the actual ReactJS site HTML code. So first things first, balance is our first call. We know it, right? Balance is our first call. What we need to do, we just need to call the value of balance, which if you do that API call is result. Okay, so on the API call itself, where you see the token supply amount, it's stored using result. So the only thing that you have to do here is balance result. Okay, that's how you make sure that from the API call, I want this particular value, and that's how you call it, and it will be converted into, you know, the string that you want to display. Okay. Next, what we need to do, we need to change this state, because now I don't need this here, because I am actually creating the constant right here, and I am calling this state over here in the render setting, so I don't need to redo it again, right? So I can effectively remove this, but now I need to type the new value, which is NFT data. So I am calling the second function, which is NFT data. That's the second API call. And I am going to grab whatever information. Remember, we no longer have that static data array of IDs. Now we have a dynamic array, and we need to make sure that I can just call the same information over and over and over again. And let me explain. I have a set of tokens that were already minted, and I want the ReactJS web server to go over each one and regenerate the same images multiple times. Regenerate or generate each individual token information into the graphical interface, or in this case, the website. So let's say we have NFT number 1. I want to run all this for NFT number 1, and I want to go again and do it for NFT number 2, and so forth. Okay. So with that said, what we need to do here, simple. We have to remove this, and we can type result, which is the output of what? From output B. This is part of the array. So we're going to say result returned. Now, because we're not using the old data array, we can effectively remove this, right? And now the image needs to change. What we need to do now to generate the image, we need to create the full path to the image file. And I am going to copy and paste and explain right now what it looks like, okay? So what I'm going to do, paste. Okay. What the first item or the first value, obviously the URL, plus whatever you get from here, which is what? The token ID .png. So at the end, what it's going to do is going to create the full IPFS path, and then it's going to extract the picture and show it on our site. Because I am giving it, number 1, the constant that we created at the beginning of the video, which points to the IPFS path for the NFT, then the value or the token ID, in this case, if it's number 1, then token ID 1.png, and that's the file. That's literally the file name. And once we run that, it should show the image, and we should be good to go. Okay, and now what we need to do here instead, we no longer have item, because that was on the old array for the static array that we configured on the previous video. Now, what we can definitely do, it's replace this with the name of the collection. We can type it manually, but then at the end, what do we want to append? The token ID, you know, NFT 1, NFT 2, NFT 3. How it's going to extract this from the API call to Etherscan, okay? Finally, and this is a good one, what we need to do, we need to add another entry for the wallet of the owner, okay? So now what I need to do, I need to add this liner here, which is basically I'm adding another line that is going to show owner wallet, and then it's going to pull the owner wallet of the NFT, and it's going to show it on the screen, okay? So in this case, it's going to show result.to, which is in this case, again, we're calling the API call. From the array, I want to extract the to value, which we saw on the beginning. It's the owner of the wallet. It's the owner of the NFT. It's the wallet of the owner, okay? So we want to show that on the screen. And finally, we no longer have that value stored in the data because we don't have the data array. Now we can just say, because it's the same for everything, buy now for all my NFTs that are shown on the screen. It's just going to have the buy now button, and we just need to type that manually. Okay. So that looks good. Now we have to do some closing. Oh, and by the way, because I am now generating this information, I wonder, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to test first if it properly aligns. If it doesn't, then I know what we should do to make it happen. It's a graphical thing. Don't worry about it. So with that said, I have to delete this information right here. Right, there we go. That was good. Let's give it a shot and see how that looks. Let me save it and cross fingers. And let's go to the site. Yeah. Oh, we got the information. The only problem is that as I explained to you earlier, that I need to properly format it. I have to create a CSS value to justify this to show it. But if you can see, it's working. It's working because we got now the owner wallet of the NFT. We got the NFT ID and so forth. So yeah, it's working. And let's take a look. And yes, we got the token supply. Amazing. So let's fix the graphical aspect of it, so it shows a line and all nice and pretty, and we can continue. So let me go ahead and copy this. So I have everything scripted here. Okay, so now this basically what I'm going to do here. I am going to create a grid, and this is CSS. I'm not going to go too much into it, but this is basically creating a grid, so it shows everything. It shows everything horizontal. And now what I'm going to say, hey, every 4 columns or every 4 NFTs, then go ahead and to the next line and continue. And this is basically an align value. Again, I'm not gonna go too detail on this one. The column gap basically, hey, give it a gap between each one, right? Now because I open a div, I have to close it, but I have to close it after this return, so everything gets stored inside of it, right? So after this return ends. Let me see where it ends. You can see it right here. It ends right here. Okay. So let me go ahead and close it here. Does it close here? No, actually it closed after this. So it has to be after this one. So let me go ahead real quick. Boom. And let me close the div. Let's see if there you go. All errors are gone. Let's take a look now and see how that looks. Save it. Let's go back. Oh, this is amazing. You see it? Okay, awesome. So we are making amazing progress here. Now we got the same information, but remember the last video? Everything was like static. Everything, I had to manually add every single entry. What I want to do now, I want to buy an NFT and I want to see if it populates here on the browser. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to run the Connect wallet first. Let's see if it works. Boom. And oh yeah, I'm already connected. This is my wallet address. And it should show that I'm connected. Amazing, it's connected. So I'm gonna buy another NFT, but I should see that NFT showing here. Right now I only see 3 because that's what Etherscan has from the information. So I'm gonna buy 1 for the transaction. I'm gonna confirm it. And crossing fingers, this should also update to 4. So I gotta make sure that that's the case, okay? So one second, let's see how that looks. Minting, just crossing fingers. Boom! We got the mint. Now, let me refresh the browser. We'll see. I got 4. That's a good sign, but I haven't gotten the update here. Still not showing. Okay, you know what? Let's go to the contract in Etherscan and see if the new token owner is reflected on the contract, because remember it needs to pull that information from Etherscan. So let me find the contract address. Boom, copy, and let me go to the block explorer, but in this case we're gonna go to Wrinklebuy and we're gonna paste this in, and we should see the latest transaction, which was done less than a minute ago. Let me go to the NFT collection, and now it shows here. Interesting. Why I don't get that information? Let me go back and give it a shot again. There you go. You see it? Amazing. Okay, you see it? Automated. No extra coding. As people continue buying NFTs, you're gonna see NFTs getting here. One more time. Let's see if I have more Ether. Yeah, I do have. I can buy another one. Let's do it. Let's buy another one. I'm gonna buy another one. Let me connect the wallet. I'm gonna buy another one. And let's go ahead and confirm. It took like, I would say like a minute. So Etherscan gets the information, and then our API call can export that information out. Okay. So let's see. Waiting. Boom! I got the NFT. Now this information should have gone up to 5, but I still don't have the NFT down here. There we go. Number 5, and the picture hasn't. There we go. The picture, it's up and running. And there's a little bit of gap that we have to work with, but that's fine. It's literally just a gap that we need to set. There you go. It's working. Let's do some styling. You can see I bought an NFT, and the site should update and get that information right away. Awesome. Amazing. This works like a charm. Okay, so let's say the following. Let's make this a little bit prettier. So I am going to put some shadowing here, and I'm going to change this information to look a little bit more visually appealing. So in order for me to do that, what I have to do, let me add a shadow here. So I'm just going to do a comma and add a text shadow. Let me save it, and let's see how that looks. Way better. Like, that makes a huge difference. Okay, awesome. Now let me fix the owner wallet a little bit, and so it looks more visually appealing. What I can do with that, I can add a style to the wallet itself, or the value, and I am going to just add the font to be bold, and that should be it. So okay, so the style, remember, if I add the style here, it applies to the owner wallet name or this value, but I want to add that to the address itself. What I want to do, I'm gonna add the like a neon green color. You know, this is like neon green. I want to make that font to be bold, and I want to add some shadowing. And if we go all the way to the right, oh yeah, because this is not completed. Okay, no worries. There we go. Boom, that took care of it. And let me save it and see how that looks. Amazing, amazing, awesome. There you have it. We have done API to pull the entire information out of Etherscan and generate our NFT art on the site. Literally dynamic. As people come in and buy NFTs, their NFTs are going to be shown. And you can see this is literally my wallet, because this is the only wallet that I've been using to buy the NFTs from the smart contract. But now you can see this populated on the site. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. This was a very long video, but it was a very, very good video. Okay, I hope this was amazing. You know, I hope you learned a lot from this one, and you now can see the power of API. Not necessarily we have to go all aboard into coding JavaScript to do Solidity calls. We can do API to do basically exactly the same thing. Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, anyone that has any questions, don't hesitate to send me the comments, and I will gladly answer that for you. I also would like to thank you for all your support, your nice messages. That means a lot to me, and that gets me more motivation to continue doing this for you guys. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. And don't forget to hit the like button, and we will see you on the next video. Bye.